Good afternoon, everyone. At the onset, I would like to thank Dr. Vignesh for giving me this opportunity to talk on a topic which is very, very dear to my heart on importance of title and abstract. What are the first impressions that we make as researchers, as students, as reviewers, and as editors? So, yes, that is the first impression that we have of any scientific publication. And it is a very valid topic to begin with if we are talking about the scientific publication. And as has always been the case, the thoughts that I express in this presentation are completely based on my experience of publishing, of researching for so many years. I definitely do not say that I know everything about the subject, and I'm open to new suggestions from your side. And just a screenshot I've put for the Google Scholar record of mine. And very happy to share that I've recently crossed 1,000 citations. And just based on that little experience that I've gained, that I'm here to speak before you on title and abstracts and its importance. So, what are our motivations for publishing? If we talk about the faculty, yes, our motivations can be quite different from the motivations of the students. So, as faculty, we all know that it's publish or perish world, and we need these publications not only to make a mark in the scientific community for our own selves, but also to go ahead with our promotions or our academic deliverances and how we are known in the scientific community. But as students, our motivations are quite different. So it can be that it is something which our guide has told us that we have to do it. But it is also about initiating that little interest that we can have in making a name for ourselves from the very beginning since we are students. And it can advance your careers, it can improve your knowledge, it can actually lead you to a good clinical practice orientation also if we start reading and writing these scientific articles. As I do for every little thing that I have done till now, first we need to know what is the need. So if I'm talking about title and abstracts, I should need to know that actually, is there any need of talking so much or having so much of discussion on the title and abstracts? Well, let me tell you that there has been studies which have proven, as I've said, I've just marked one study here on the screen that you can see. Of 5,000 respondents that were asked how they were reading the articles, it was seen that approximately only of the 5,000, only 97 articles were read per annum by these respondents, total articles, the complete articles. But if you talk about the abstracts, since we're talking about title and abstracts, twice the number the abstracts were read, and even 10 times more the titles were read. So, what does it indicate? The needs analysis tells us that title is the first thing that any reader, any reviewer, any editor, when you submit your manuscript, that is the first thing that goes in front of the eyes of these people whom you want your scientific publication to read. So this is read 10 times more than the actual article. So actual article comes much later. First the title comes, that is read the maximum. Then, if you generate a kind of interest in the reader about your title, then the reader would go to your abstract. So it becomes really, really important to know what are the tips and tricks of writing good titles and good abstracts. So this is the whole format of any scientific publication that we all know, that first there is a title, then there is an abstract, then there's an introduction which introduces the subject, then there is material methods of how you've conducted the study, and then there are results, the results that have come out of your study you are mentioning here. Then you discuss those results with respect to the previous studies that have been done, and then you reach to your conclusion, the acknowledgement, and the references. This is a basic structure. We are not here to discuss the whole basic structure. So let's quickly jump to the abstract and the title section. So as we all know, the title is the first thing, as I said, which comes in front of the readers when you submit your manuscript. It is the first thing that is read by the editors. And if the editors like your title, or it is of interest to their journal, it is pertaining to the scope of the journal, then your abstract or the manuscript will be read by the editor and sent for peer review. So this is the first step. Okay. So title, definitely, I'm starting with an example. And as I always say, it is just based on my own personal experience. So this, I keep on criticizing my own work. So when I have written here, which title do you think is better? Pertaining the context, if you want to study the article, relevant to it. So which article, which title would be better? The left one, that is photo editing in orthodontics. How much is too much? This is my own article, which was published in 2013. And at that time, I did not have too much of idea about how to publish, how to write. So, I've improved. So if given a chance now, if I have to write the same article, the title would be on the right side. Limits of photo editing in orthodontics, applying DW Chromate guidelines. So the left one doesn't tell you anything what I'm going to do. It just talks about photo editing in orthodontics. It can be how much we should do, how much is too much. So how much we should do, how much we should not do. What are the, the AI tools, or what are the tools that can be applied for photo editing. So it can comprise anything. It doesn't tell you anything. It's a very, very general title which I had written. But on the right side, if you see, I talk specifically about limits of photo editing, applying which guidelines, that is DW Chromate guidelines. So it tells you much more about the context of the study. So if you want to read the article about photo editing limits, you would definitely, be the title on the right side would be more catchy for you than the title on the left side. So definitely I failed on the title aspect in the left side. So it should include the outcomes, the methods, and the sample or the subject. General constituents of a title should be this. So if you look at the right side, do we have the outcome? Yes. We are talking about the limits of photo editing. Does it have the methods? Yes. We are applying the DW Chromate guidelines. Does it have the sample of the subject? Yes. We're talking about the orthodontic population. So definitely, it includes all the context. So in general, this is the first thing that comes to our mind, that the title should reflect the context of the article that is soon to follow. So it should have the outcome, the methods, and the sample or the subject. It should have the context of the study in all these in all this format, and also it should be a simple present tense, not too much of past perfect that has to be used in this. So you should have a simple language, a simple present tense language in the title. It should be brief, 5 to 15 words. This is also a very interesting study which says that if there is too long a title, 39% less chance of it being read. So if the title falls within the range of 5 to 15 words, definitely there is a greater chance of it being read and it being understood by the reader. Because if the title or if the sentence is too long, even the context gets lost and the reader also loses his or her interest in your article. So it should be brief, not too brief, not too long, 5 to 15 words. And, there is a tip and trick, if you see, that you should first form a working title. So the first thing is that title per se has to be the last thing that you have to finalize. When you start writing an article, you should just write with a working title. You and your guide, or whatever co-investigators are working on the particular topic, you should first start just with a working title, just like a palatable title. Okay, you can just talk about it and you can just write that title. That is not the final title, but you can formulate the whole manuscript. And then maybe, when the results come, maybe you find something novel, maybe you find something more interesting, so that has to be included in the title. So you should always formulate or finalize the title at the last. So first of all, formulate just a working title, and then if you find any novelty, any new finding, any observation, you should include it in the final title. It can be an abbreviated form of your research question or your aim. And generally speaking, it should have a spiced setting. So it should, spiced means setting, population, intervention, condition, endpoint, design. This is just, just a format that you have to follow. But per se, as we said in the previous slide, that it should have the outcomes, it should have the context, and it should have the sample or the subject and it should have the condition what you're talking about. So that is, again, if you slice it into this, it becomes SPICED, which is setting, population, intervention, condition, endpoint, and design. I'll be giving you everything by examples because I'm not in favor of rote learning or that kind of pedagogy. So let us go with the examples. So again, I take my own examples as I trashed my earlier title. Now I'm going to tell you this is a very recent study in 2022. So if you talk about this title, then development, testing, and feasibility of a customized mobile application for obstructive sleep apnea risk assessment, a hospital-based pilot study. So it tells you everything about the study, tells you the total context of the study. It tells you that the population setting is on obstructive sleep apnea risk patients. What is the study setting? That is the hospital-based study. And what have I done, or the outcome which I have achieved is development, testing, and feasibility. So it should include everything. Again, one more example, which is a recent example, transverse changes in lateral and medial aspects of palatal rugae after mid-palatal expansion. Again, the same thing. I have the whole context of the study. I have the population. I have the intervention, which I have done, which is the mid-palatal expansion. I have the comparator, where I have compared the lateral and the medial aspects, and the outcome is the transverse changes, which I have measured. So either you can divide it into, in your own mind, you can divide it into a PICO format, which is participant, intervention, comparator, and outcome. Or you can again slice it into a SPICED format, which is setting, population, intervention, condition, endpoint, and design. Design is per se, not in every study you should be writing the design. Like in this study, you don't have to write a comparative study, or you don't have to write a clinical trial. If it's a randomized clinical trial, definitely you should write it. If it's a systematic review, a scoping review, or any evidence-based review, definitely you should write it. So if it's, or if it's a setting which is completely different from the normal setting, like I said, a hospital-based pilot study, then definitely you should add it as a subtitle. But otherwise, you should write it in a plain sentence where your population should be incorporated within the title itself. So let's just exercise the formulation of the title. So again, I'll take an example. So if I want to study, or my aim of the study is to determine the effect of fixed lingual retainers on periodontium and patient tolerance when I compare it to removable retainer. So how I'm going to formulate my title, as I said, that we can also have an abbreviated form of the aim as the title. So we can have the effect of fixed lingual retainers on periodontium and patient tolerance. It can be a comparative study or a randomized controlled trial. So again, if I divide it into a PICO format, do I have the participant in this? Yes. The patients who have been given fixed lingual retainers. Do I have the intervention in this? Yes, the fixed lingual retainers. Do I have the comparator in this? Since it's a comparative study, so I'm comparing it with one other group, which is a removable orthodontic retainers. And do I have the outcome? Yes, I'm measuring the periodontium factors and the patient tolerance factors. So it's very comprehensive title. It tells you everything, and it also tells you about the study design. As I said, since it's a randomized control trial, I should write it as a randomized control trial because my citability would be more. In the first slide, why I showed you the number of citations was not to boast about, but to tell you how to increase the citations with these small tips and tricks is also what you should know. Because ultimately, what you're writing is not for your own self. Otherwise, you should have just written an article and kept it in your own bag and not sent it anywhere. When you are sending it for publication means that you want the other persons to read it. And why should the readers read it? That is, again, that you have to employ all these tips and tricks in your scientific writing so that you get more citations. So please, please follow these guidelines so that you are read more and you get more citations. And it's really, I must tell you, you get a lot of satisfaction that your work is being accepted by the scientific community. So this is just one step towards it. Or since I told you that it can be an abbreviated form of your, the main aim, but you can also do one more thing, that you can describe, since I told you that title has to be written just at the end, it has to be finalized at the end. So now you know the whole study, you have the results, you have the discussion, you have the conclusion. So you can just summarize in your own words your whole paper in 2 or 3 lines, and you can remove all the redundant words. Like, even when you are abbreviating your aim, you are removing all the redundant words which are not required, like to determine the effects of. So to determine, I've removed, I just use the effects of. So if you're writing any 2 or 3 lines, you should just remove the words which are coming again and again, or which are holding no value of and the. You should not be using those words. So use the minimal amount of words which can convey your information very, very clearly and very precisely. And yes, you should establish a PICO. When it's a scientific study, you should always establish a PICO. Or if it's an in vitro study, then definitely you have to write the study design like an in vitro study or any observational study. So whatever you're writing, then you should write it in ahead of that. Again, this is a very good article if you want to read through it. So it has given in a tabulated form what should a good title and a poor title comprise of. So if you talk about very simple things, like I said, length, 10 to 15 words or 31 to 40 characters. But if it's longer than that, as I said, my interest will go. I will not read it. I will skip through it. So we should not be going through that. Punctuation marks, since I said, if it's a study setting, if it's a study design that you want to highlight, or if it's some population that you want to highlight, or if it's some perspective that you want to highlight, then you should separate it by colon or semicolon, or you can also put commas. But writing question marks in a title may not be a very good idea. Why? Because you've done the whole study. Now, again, you're writing the title with a question mark. That means that still there is that question in your mind, which you've not answered. So it should preferably, mention the outcome in the title itself so that the reader gets more clarity. Okay, what you're talking about. What is the study that you have comprised of and what are the outcomes of it? So it should basically be in the PICO format. Keyword use, yes, I will definitely take you. I don't have too much of time here, but I will like to take you how we suggest the keywords in the title itself. Again, why keywords are important? Because you want readability, you want more citations. So how will you get more citations? If right from the very beginning in the title itself, you incorporate certain keywords which are used by the indexing databases so that they catch upon your title again. Like, it's just same way like the SEOs work in websites. So you want your title, your article to be on the top. If somebody wants to search that topic, your article should come on the top. So how will it come on the top? If you use those keywords when the other readers are searching the internet for that particular topic, if you have those keywords, your article will be reflected first. So let us go through this very small video if you want to see here. So this is a mesh database. I'm just taking this example because I hope you can see this. So this is, I've reached the PubMed and I've reached the mesh. Here you can see this is a PubMed site, and here on the left side you see you can search all databases. You can start so many things you can study here, but I'm using mesh. So if I want to do a study on obstructive sleep apnea and I want to use the keywords in my title itself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type obstructive sleep apnea. And you can see here down, if I go, you can also see obstructive sleep apnea. Now you search. So you see sleep apnea obstructive. It has come here. What is the plus point of using a mesh keyword in your title or in your abstract, below the abstract where they give keywords? What is the plus point? Because if you look through this mesh, there are so many entry terms. The reader can put any entry term out of all these. If you go down the mesh database, reader can put apnea, obstructive sleep apnea, or just sleep apneas, or obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. Anything that the reader will use as an entry term, your keyword will be reflected and your article will be caught up in that search. So it is preferable that multiple terms can be used for a single topic. So even if I want to use obstructive sleep apnea, I can use so many different terms. But if I'm using a mesh keyword, then definitely all the entry terms will be included in this, and my article would come up on the top. So it is always preferable that you kind of go to the uh, mesh database. So let me come back again. This is a very small thing that I told you because this is routinely that we follow. And also one more tip that I have to give you. If you have to use it in your title, use it in the starting only. Because if you go through the Google database, then definitely you will see that sometimes the whole title is not reflected in the initial search. Only the first 6 or 7 words are reflected. So it is always preferable that you use these keywords in the very beginning so that no matter how many terms are there, the keywords get reflected and your article gets cited. Then definitely you should not use jargons which are very conducive to your own speciality, which are very, only your readers can read it. If it's very specific, then definitely you have to, but avoid using jargons, avoid using humor. You are doing that science is no joke. So if you are doing something very seriously, you should not be using humor in your titles. You can use geographical location, but it's not that important. And you should follow the journal guidelines. Definitely, if they have some word limit or if they have some character limit, you have to follow that. And you should clearly state the point. And yes, very important and a very simple thing. You should use the whole title, or you should write the whole title in a sentence case, and don't make any grammatical mistakes. If there are grammatical mistakes, spelling errors, that is a put off in the very first thing in the mind of the editors itself. They will say that, okay, these guys are not, they're not serious about their writing. So why should we go ahead with the peer review only? So it may get a desk rejection. So you should always be very, very particular that your grammar, your spellings, everything is just perfect in the title. And avoid using abbreviations, which are not very standardized, like HIV, DNA, RNA. These are very standardized, abbreviations. You can use them, but don't use like PRF. So you should always write a full form, like platelet-rich fibrin. Don't use these kind of abbreviation without their full form in the title itself. So if I talk about the title, then this is another example that I'm saying efficacy of platelet-rich fibrin. So title can be many types. It can be descriptive, it can be declarative, it can be interrogative. Declarative means, as I said, it's in a simple sentence. You have all the PICO, you have the patient intervention, comparator outcome, everything is there in one simple sentence. Declarative, I'm just highlighting the outcome. So like injectable platelet-rich fibrin has greater efficacy. I'm already telling the outcome that it has a greater efficacy in disc displacement without reduction. Again, one thing is interrogative. It's not a very good thing to write an interrogative title, but does the use of injectable platelet-rich fibrin, maybe, you thought that, okay, I'm arousing the interest of the readers and I'm writing a question mark at the end, but it's not a very good option. So descriptive is always preferred. Again, as I said, if you are writing investigations of metagenomic analysis reveals a changing microbiome. So you're writing so many words. Now, if you want to cut it short, just cut the clutter. Remove all the extra word, investigations of, evaluation of, everything you cut. Just come straight to the point, metagenomic analysis of microbial dynamics associated with oral squamous cell carcinoma. So depth of invasion, you don't need to write all that. Cut the clutter. Studies on, investigations on, you don't need that in the title A, and the minimal use you should do. And you should always write in a sentence case. So neither too short, not too long. It has to be specific. Avoid syntax errors. Avoid useless words. Yes, another thing, if you are writing the keywords, or if you're searching for the keywords, one thing I told you about mesh, or you can also write a keyword and in the bracket like TIAB. That is again for title and abstract. So you can also do that. And you should always use the keywords at the start, as I said, and you should use a PICO format, and it need not be a sentence. Another type, when you can classify the types of titles, can be nominal, compound, or full sentence. We have discussed all of this, but as I'm used to writing examples for everything, nominal is that you just write the main theme. Compound is, as I said, if it's a study setting, study design, or a population, then you are using with a colon or a semicolon. And full sentences, which are longer, which has all the components like injectable platelet-rich fibrin has greater efficacy without this. So it has all the things like PICO, the complete thing. Nominal will have just the main theme. So all these three titles are separate, but you can use any of the titles, but you have to see what kind of study you are referring to. I would still tell you that in compound with subtitles, don't jump on to write with subtitles. You should only write the subtitles if it is something specific that you want to talk about. So test yourself. These are my own studies, and I'm just telling you how these citations vary. So one of them have the 398 citation, one can have 200 citations. But why? It's not that this, maybe it's written also well, but it can have certain tips and tricks of increasing the citation. That's what I'm here to tell you about. So these are all my own studies. And this is how we formulate the titles in the form of PICO format. Or if it's an evidence-based review, again, we try to include all the patient intervention comparison and outcome findings in that. Some exercises about the title. So if we look at the first title, comparison of patient tolerance, stability of expansion, and oral hygiene status with slow and rapid maxillary expansion devices in cleft and non-cleft. It's a very long title. So if I can shorten it, I would just do a comparative study in cleft patients. So obviously I know it will be with the controls for non-cleft patient. So the first thing that I would say, it's too long, so I need to shorten it. The second title is Study of Effect of Rapid Maxillary Expansion in Cleft and Non-Cleft Patients. So in this case, I would definitely say that the extra words are present, which is study of. I can just write effect of rapid maxillary expansion. If I talk about patient tolerance with slow and rapid maxillary expansion devices, a government institutional study, definitely I'm adding it with the colon because it's in it is in a specific study setting, which is a government institutional study. So definitely that has to be included in the colon. And if I write the fourth one, like unilateral cleft lip and palatal clinical profile, it doesn't say anything, it's useless. It's too short. So I need to be specific. So neither too long, nor too short. It has to have all the context of the study, and it does not have to use jargons. It does not have to use extra words, and it has to make a meaning. It has to have keywords. So all these are basic things that you should go on and on in your mind when you're writing the title. Then we come to the abstract. So again, I'm writing the broader picture. After the title comes the abstract. So first the reader is going to read your title. Okay, now he says that I'm interested in this topic and I need to further go ahead with the article. Then he would go to the abstract. This is a checklist tool that we have copyrighted in our own institute. And this is our own MQCT tool. So if you want to go through it, last time also I had mentioned in the GIS Chronicles only where the lecture I had given, that this is a simple checklist for writing all the abstract, introduction, IMRAD format of the manuscript. In that, the first item is abstract. So let's go through the abstract findings only. What is an abstract? It's just a summary, or it's a first picture that you get about the whole manuscript. And it has a certain word limit. So it has to have, again, the context of, first of all, a minor introduction of what is the study all about. If I'm writing about obstructive sleep apnea, definitely 1 or 2 lines about the prevalence, 1 line about the prevalence and why it's important, and what is the gap I want to study. So if I'm studying the craniofacial morphology in OSA patients, then definitely there's a gap that the craniofacial morphology has not been studied too well in maybe the Indian setup, or I have to write that gap here. Then again, I have to come to the methodology, or before that, the aim. So when I highlight the gap, then I have to come to the aim, why I decided to do that study. Then what are the methods I employ to do that study? What were the results section of my study? And the discussion is not important in the abstract, but you have to reach to the conclusion where you have to write 1 line at least about the future aspects. So it has to be a standalone thing, Once you read the abstract, you know what is the gist of the manuscript and whether it is important for you, then only you will read the whole manuscript. It's very interesting because we keep on doing the evidence-based reviews. So even in that prisma, if you see, the first step is that you have to screen the articles which are relevant to your search just based on the titles and the abstracts. So they are so important that everything has to be there standalone in the abstract so that the reader has that curiosity. Okay, now I have to read the whole article. So if it's, every manuscript can have abstracts, thesis can have abstracts, manuscripts can have abstracts, conference can have abstracts. So everywhere you need an abstract because the whole the whole detailed version, all the readers are not going to read. So, but the words are different. Like thesis can have longer abstracts and manuscripts can have shorter, like 150 or to 250 words of abstract. It can be structured, non-structured. So let us go through the whole concept of how to write the abstract. But for clinical trials and all, you have consort guidelines for observation, you have stroke guidelines for diagnostic accuracy studies, you have START guidelines. But let's just first come to, so this is the checklist tool. So if you look at the points, you have a certain distribution. It is an unsaid rule that you have to follow this kind of a distribution in your abstract, whether it is a structured abstract or a non-structured abstract or a descriptive abstract. You need to have this kind of a division in your abstract. That the introduction, when I said that you're just introducing the concept and you're highlighting the gap and reaching to your research question, that is just 25% of the whole abstract. When you're writing about the methodology, you don't have to explain the methodology in the total detail. You just have to write down the main key points of your methodology, and you don't have to write the whole standardized methodologies also. So you don't have to write 4 gram of this sulfur was taken or anything. You don't have to write the details. So you just have to write the main gist of the methodology. Results have to occupy the maximum section, which is 35%, because that is what you are here to read about. So what are the results are very, very important, but primarily you should only include the primary outcomes in this. And yes, the significance has to be mentioned, but the secondary outcomes and the non-significant findings have to be mentioned in the total manuscript. So you have to stick to the primary outcomes in your results section, and the conclusion can be directly the conclusion of your primary outcome and a future aspect what you would like to recommend to the readers. So that is how your abstract has to be structured. So this is again our own studies, and if we look at how to begin with the examples, so this is a structured abstract. This is of our own study. So if you talk about, look at the description. This is published very recently in 2023 itself. And there you can see in the introduction, you have just 25%, where we have written down that we are talking about the non-metric dental crown traits and using the Arizona State dental anthropology system, and what are the gap we have highlighted and why we reached to that aim. One very important thing about writing abstract is it has to be in a cohesive format, that the reader should not feel, okay, this sentence is ended, now something else has come immediately. No, it has to be in a story format, and you have to reach down to the conclusion in a story format itself. So you first write down the whole background in 1 line or 1.5 line, very short intro. Then you highlight the gap, and cohesively you reach, okay, because this was the gap, so we did this research question. And then you come to the methodology, how you did it, and then the results. So the results you can see have taken up the maximum 35% of the whole abstract, and the significant findings have been mentioned in the conclusion with the future plan, which is just 15%. This is just has to be in the back of your mind when you're writing the abstract. And yes, when I told you that title has to be written, just at the end, after writing everything, even the abstract, it has to be finalized at the end. The abstract has to be written after you write down the whole manuscript, so that you don't miss anything and you take out the key points from your whole manuscript and you write in the abstract. So don't be in a hurry to write the abstract. It has to be towards the end of writing your manuscript or your thesis. Unstructured or informational abstract, that is again, it has the same distribution as 25%, 25%, 35%, and 15%, but it is just not having the same headings. It is per se the journal guidelines, but it is having the same information as the structured abstract. And many times in the conference also, we write an unstructured abstract or an informational or a descriptive abstract. So in the descriptive abstract, maybe we do not give the results per se because it has not come as yet, but you just write down what are the study that you are planning to do, and the results will soon follow. That is in the conference. Sometimes we write like that. In the descriptive abstract, this is how you've written. Mainly in the case reports and all, you follow the descriptive abstract. So informational and descriptive abstract are different. In this, you are just writing the description about the study itself or the case report that you're going to do. But in the unstructured and the structured abstract, you basically follow that format of 25%, 25%, 35%, and 15%, because all those headings are important in structured and unstructured abstract. But you write, if you extrapolate that into the evidence-based review, again, these are our own evidence-based reviews. Again, the same structure has been followed. But the only thing is that, again, you have to do the same thing. You have to introduce the subject, you have to write down the gap, and then you have to write down the aim. But in the method section, it's very, very important that you write the date of the search, the number of databases that you've searched, whether you've done the hand search or not. The databases detail you may not write. You have to write the free text and the mesh terms that you have used, the types of studies, search limit, data collection, and grade also if you're writing the level of evidence. So this all is included in the methodology section in the evidence-based reviews abstract. So they're slightly different from what you're going to include in the normal abstracts. In the results, again, how many total number of studies were there, and the participants' and study characteristics, outcomes. But again, this will be having the maximum section. So if you look at the left side, you will see that the results again occupy 35% of the whole abstract. So the basic structure follows the same, whether it is our normal structured and non-structured abstract, or it is an evidence-based review abstract. But you have to, the inclusion, what is there, that I've highlighted, how it is different from a normal abstract. Keywords, again, as I said, I've told you how to go to the mesh database and why it's important. So you have to, per se, bring your article on the top while the readers are locating that topic. So that keywords become important because you have to use the mesh databases or you have to use the other free text terms as keywords, but try using it again and again throughout the abstract so that your article again comes on the top. Include the area of research, type of research, drugs, effects, outcome. Use those keywords again and again. As I said, abstracts are different from conference abstracts, paper, dissertation, call for proposals. So all these things, call for proposals, definitely you don't know the results as yet. So you're going to write, okay, we're planning to do that study. But yes, I would like to tell you that always include novelty in the abstract if there is a call for proposal, because based on the novelty, your chances of getting that proposal accepted becomes more and more. So it's important what you're writing in the abstract, because let me tell you, nobody has the time to go through the whole thing. If that that one paragraph of your abstract catches their attention, then definitely they will go through the whole proposal. So it's, just like that, like these days, it's an era of shorts. So if you're interested in that short, you just have that much amount of readers' concentration with you. So you have to capture that reader's attention during that time. Dissertation abstract is slightly longer. It's main argument of the thesis, and you can summarize the dissertation in this. So I have put in a link, which is very, very useful if you're writing the dissertation. We don't have time to explain the whole detail, but you can go through this link if you want. Conference abstract, this is my own conference abstract, which I had sent last year for oral microbiome in orthodontic patients with obstructive sleep apnea using flow cytometry. It's a comparative study. So again, this title also includes all the PICO format, and this abstract body is a non-structured abstract. But if you look through the whole thing, again, it will be in the same format, 25, 25, 35, and 15%. So this is basically just an example. Only two sentences are normally used, which is present tense used for established knowledge, past tense for what you're already reporting. So this is a general format that you follow throughout your scientific writing. Okay, one very interesting thing about abstract is that these days, as I said, it's how you're capturing the reader's attention. So this is another way of capturing the reader's attention, is a graphical abstract or a video abstract these days. People are, journals are also telling you to send a graphical abstract or a video abstract. Why? Because whatever is visual catches the reader's attention more easily. So this is one of our graphical abstract, that the development, testing, and feasibility study. This is the whole methodology that I've summarized in one flowchart or maybe in one picture. So this I had sent as a graphical abstract, and this improved my chances of getting this citation of the manuscript to a greater extent than the normal articles which I have written. So sending a graphical abstract or a video abstract is much more important than sending the normal structured or a non-structured abstract. Why video abstracts also? Because you can include the multimedia aspect into it. So it becomes more catchy, it becomes more explanatory for the readers, and it becomes more easy for them to understand your concept. So, you can use various tools like SciScope and all. These are the tools that you can use for converting your normal PowerPoint to this graphical or the video abstracts. Some tips and tricks towards the end. So I have explained a lot about the titles and the abstract, but just to summarize the whole thing so that we don't forget and we keep on reminding ourselves again and again while we're writing the abstracts or the titles, you have to write the abstracts at the end of the manuscripts and title completely at the end, even after the abstracts. Write your motivation and gaps in the motivation of writing the article and the gaps in the abstract. Mention the primary findings only in the abstract. There are no references which are required in the abstract. You have to have a cohesive format if writing in the abstract so that it becomes in a story format and one line completely leads on to the other line and the reader is not confused. You have to write keyword at the beginning of the title and have to use those keywords again and again in the abstract so that your manuscript comes on the top while the reader is searching for that topic. Numerical values, they can be avoided completely, like a study period or a sample size. You don't need to write that in the titles. The abstracts are important for readers, for reviewers, and for editors. So as I said, don't make any grammatical mistakes, don't make any syntax errors, don't make any jargons in your titles so that it is very palatable for all. Mention the changes. Sometimes we do this mistake very often. When the manuscript is sent for revisions, we do the revisions in the text, but we forget to do the revisions in the abstract, which is a very basic mistake that we do. So whenever you're making those revisions in the whole manuscript, please make sure that you have done those revisions also in the abstract. Use graphical or video abstract wherever possible. Use AI tools like Skyscape and all, wherever necessary. They are for your own use. And many of these are free. And for their premium versions of Skyscape, then you'll have to pay. But you can always go ahead with the free versions. Some general tips and tricks are you should use a simple language. Don't use jargons or abbreviations wherever it's not required or they're not standardized. You need to cut the clutter. Don't use any extra words. Follow the journal guidelines and make no grammatical mistakes whatsoever. Read it again, make your friends read it, make your peers read it, and then only send it for publication so that you are read as often as you try to read other researchers. So this is my only take for the day. And thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here with all of you. And I would love the questions and the discussions that are soon to follow.